Hello, friends. This is Pastor Christopher Morundi, the director of the Lutheran Institute of Regenerative Agriculture. Exciting things happening out here on the farm as we're having, I don't know if it's an early spring or, my daughter said a couple days ago, they said, is this summer? So we're actually getting out and doing a lot of work outside and preparing for students here soon. And if you haven't heard, we put out a few videos in the last few weeks talking about our new program called the Gap Year Program for students that are looking for either take a year off between high school and college, or those who maybe aren't even interested in college, that sort of thing. Please check that out on our website, where it's our first student program. Really, really excited to be offering that coming up this fall. So check out our website for that. Check out our previous videos about that. As we go into the new year, and we're already a month into the new year, we want to continue having conversations with people, and certainly one of the things that we want to do more often. We've talked a lot about theoretical stuff over the past year. We want to get some more nuts and bolts, hands-on stuff to go with the theoretical, with theology and the philosophy of managing the land and that sort of thing. And also I want to continue to develop our relationships with various other organizations. And you can go to our brand new partners page on our website, and you can see the various organizations that we are partnering with in one way, shape, or form or another. And one of the great relationships that has been a wonderful joy to me has been with Concordia University and in Seward, Nebraska, and particularly the ag program. And we're very glad to have today with us Amy Pritchett. She's a senior at Concordia University in Seward, Nebraska, and she invited me, I think it was over a year ago, to speak at Ag Week at Seward last academic year. And she has been a part of a group who came out here and did a volunteer day out at the farm, and it's been so much fun to see that relationship between what we're doing here and Concordia Ag in Seward develop and grow. And I'm looking forward to seeing what will happen in the future. So I wanted to have one of the students on. I want her to talk a little bit about both Concordia Ag and kind of her own journey, her own story, but then also to talk more about the kinds of things she's had the opportunity to do as a student, and offer some maybe hands-on advice that she's learned along the way as she gets ready to get propelled into the world after graduation in May. So Amy, it's a wonderful joy to have you with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a little bit about your background and what led you to Concordia, Nebraska, Concordia Ag, and yeah, just give a little bit of your bio and what you've had the opportunity to do as you've been at Concordia Ag.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, I'm from Denver, Colorado, so definitely did not grow up in the ag world, didn't really have any experience with agriculture before coming to college. But kind of how I started with that was that my senior year, I was deciding what I wanted to study, and one thing that I knew I liked was gardening. And so just based off that like slight interest, I decided to go ahead and try to study agriculture. And that summer, like I got a job at an organic vegetable farm, just about 45 minutes outside of Denver, and absolutely loved it. And it was just a great experience and kind of really propelled me in that sureness of agriculture is what I wanted to do. And so when I was looking for colleges too, I wanted to go to a Christian school too, just because I knew it would be something that would prioritize my values and everything like that, and just be a great experience. And so finding a school that had agriculture and was a Christian or private school really kind of narrowed the search. There weren't too many, but I just got involved with more things at Concordia, like choir and different kind of opportunities there. And like since I've been here, it's just been a really great experience. I think a lot of the highlights about the ag program at Concordia, it's only about 5 years old, so it's pretty young still. But I think one of the benefits is that they built their curriculum completely from the ground up. And the point of the program is really to give the student a holistic understanding of agriculture. And for a student like me with very minimal background in agriculture, that's really beneficial because even though I have a specific interest, I really gain a broader understanding of agriculture and how it works and how the different sectors interact. And I think that's really important. But the program, besides being very kind of like basic and holistic, I think it's also very beneficial for students who maybe are planning on going back to the family farm or know exactly what they want to do in agriculture, but still want that education and that experience. I think the program is really beneficial for the people like that. Um, so it's just been a really great experience. I think they do a really good job of uh, promoting different sectors of agriculture, but then also creating the connections for students to succeed. Like we have a lot of connections with producers in the area that we can go out and look at their operation and see how they run things, as well as connections with companies like some of the co-ops or different things like that in the area. And we have like a number of students in my class that are graduating this year that have gotten jobs based off of internships that they've gotten connected with because of the ag program. And so I think it's really cool to see that they're really prioritizing making sure that the students who come through our program have a job and have, you know, a way to go after they graduate.
That's wonderful. That's one that that's I've ever since I heard that they were starting this program, been very excited about it, and it's glad to see it coming to fruition, starting to graduate students and send them out into the world. And so what's kind of ahead for you? What's as you look forward to May and graduation? What are the next steps?
Yeah. So I'm planning on staying around here in Nebraska. For a while, I thought I might go home to Colorado, and continue to work on that farm there. I worked there for about 3 summers. But now I'm recently engaged, so I'm going to be staying here in Nebraska. I work on a farm just kind of north of Seward here, about 12 miles. And my plan right now is to continue to work for them for a while. There was a time where I thought I wanted to own my own farm, like pretty soon after I graduated. But just in the last couple of years, I think I've realized how much work it is and how much uh, dedication it's going to take to be able to start something like that right after graduation. I just don't have the resources or time to do that right now. So I'm going to be happy with working for somebody else for a while, but hopefully like working on different vegetable farms or different things like that. And I could see myself too starting a maybe smaller size business or something like that that I could do on the side or maybe do in conjunction with a larger farm. So don't know exactly where we're going right now, but just kind of know that I have resources in the area. I know people who have farms who are looking for help. So I think there's lots of opportunities.
Yeah, and having that opportunity where that you're already at, just up the road, it really provides a nice place to jump off from graduation.
Yeah.
So let's talk about gardening and I gardening both on the small scale with where just having it in the backyard or and all the way up to the kinds of places that you've had the opportunity to spend time and work at. Just first of all, I
Yeah.
mean, if you're going to give advice to someone who wants to do the kinds of things that you've had the opportunity to do, or maybe what even may be in your future at some point, like you said, maybe not in the cards right after graduation, but maybe down the line. Where do you start? Where do you start with starting to deal with God's little plant creatures and working with them? Where would you begin?
Yeah, I would definitely suggest there are definitely some plants that are a lot easier to grow than others, some that are a lot less picky or particular on like their conditions. So if you have like maybe a small garden plot in your backyard, or maybe if you're just doing like container plants, I think there's definitely lots of different options for things that you could do. I think some of the easiest things to grow would be like zucchini, green beans, like even some tomato plants. I think those are definitely things that are really good to get somebody started when they're like trying to start gardening because generally you're going to be successful at those things. Zucchini and green beans, they always produce way more than you end up needing, it seems like. But there's stuff that like grows really well. And with those two, especially, it's the kind of thing where if you have a pot or like a garden plot, you can just sow those direct into the ground. They don't require a ton of work, just watering and just kind of making sure. And then once they start producing, to make sure you're picking them regularly so they continue to produce. Other things like maybe tomatoes is also a super popular one, but is also not a bad place to start. Generally, tomatoes are not difficult to grow. If you wanted to start a tomato, I would suggest probably starting with a plant. If you have like a farmer's market or something like that nearby, I would look in the earlier spring and see if they have plants available there. Generally, you can buy plants from stores like Walmart, or Tractor Supply, they'll have plants available for purchase. But I would think that buying a plant from a farmer's market is a little more sure, and it will help you to make sure you're getting a variety that is going to succeed. Just because the farmers, they, grow their own produce in that area. And so they're going to pick varieties that are going to be successful. And I think that's one way to really um, pick the plant and things like that that is going to help you to be most successful. But if you maybe didn't want to start them outside, maybe it stays cold a little bit too long or something like that, you can always do things like get like little Dixie cups from Walmart and a little bit of soil, and you can start your plants inside. The only thing that you got to be careful with those though is if you don't want them to get too big before you start planting them outside. So once they start getting, maybe 3 or 4 inches tall, then they're probably ready to go outside and things like that. So there's just definitely a lot of different things and places you can start. Maybe if you're more focused, if you don't have a little garden plot and you're thinking more about planters, you could look more into like things like climbing beans and peas and things like that. So with beans and peas, there are bush varieties, and then as well as climbing varieties, where climbing varieties would do the vines, as you would know. But other things like that, maybe like some herbs like basil or mint are really easy to grow and really fun. It's nice to have fresh things like that, as well as like squash. Squash don't put down a very deep root, so they would be fine to do in a container. But yeah, so there's lots of different options for if you're just getting started. And those are definitely great things that is very easy to be successful with and is a really great place to start if you're just trying gardening for the first time.
The nice thing about plants is, I mean, you can plant so many of them. You can and you can go trial and error. You can learn as you go. It's a little more difficult to do that with say animals, with livestock.
Of
Uh,
course, yeah.
yeah, so yeah, it a lot of it is just, hey, put a seed in the ground or put a plant in the ground. Just try it. See what happens. It's not that intimidating, or it shouldn't be that intimidating. And it's amazed me to see folks who all they have is a back porch or a deck, and they put a couple containers there, and they have enough tomatoes to have fresh tomatoes on their plate every day, type of thing. So it's really cool to see what people can do just with a little bit, if just taking that time to just do a small amount. So shifting gears then from how we get started on our own, providing for ourselves. You've had the opportunity to work on farms that are for profit, right? They're there to produce not just for the family that lives there, but for many other people. So what have you learned from them? What kind of lessons are you learning that maybe someday you'll take on, to maybe an entrepreneurial opportunity of your own, or what have you learned that you can pass on to those watching today, about growing vegetables for profit?
Yeah. I would say one thing that I remember talking to my boss once about what's the most important thing to that really defines a successful farm. And like the first thing that he said straight away was just cash flow. Cash flow is really important of making sure that there's always a flow of money, meaning that you have a place to market your vegetables to sell them, that you have people who are willing to buy it. For larger production farms, sometimes farmers markets or wholesale is an option, but if it's maybe a smaller farm, one way that's really profitable and a really great way to be successful in that sense is a CSA. So CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture, and generally it's a subscription program that a farm puts on. And so they have people that subscribe to their program, and every 2 weeks, just kind of depending, they'll get like a basket or a box of produce. And so I think CSAs are a great way to have that kind of guaranteed cash, because the subscribers pay upfront at the very beginning of the season. It's a great way to have that cash immediately, especially when you're having the issues with needing to buy seed and fertilizer and maybe potting mix and things like that right away. It's good to have that cash up front when you really haven't grown anything yet. And so I think that's one way that even a small farm could be successful if they have a group of people who are willing to invest in them and willing to just follow up with them week after week. It's a great way to build connections and just kind of create a community surrounding your farm. For in senses of what you would grow and kind of like the things that you would want to produce, I would say look at your local farmers markets, see what's there, but also maybe notice what's not there. You know, maybe some things are not produced as much as often as others. Like one thing that I've noticed about like the Lincoln Farmers Market, there's really not a lot of people who produce like some things like garlic or sometimes colored onions. You know, so there are some specialty crops that people really like and really like fresh, but just are not grown as much. And as a small producer, you can take advantage of those kind of niche markets. And you have like the kind of opportunity to grow those things and provide that product that maybe other people might not have. There are always the kind of very productive things like tomatoes and green beans and squash, things like those. They produce a lot and you can get a lot of produce out of them. But you got to realize too that pretty much every farm is going to produce that. And so there's going to be a lot of people that produce that. And so you got to know, are you going to be able to sell your product at a price that's competitive with other people? Or are you going to be able to have the quality and quantity that's going to compete with other producers? But one thing I think is really important to kind of consider for what you're picking to produce is kind of seasons of what are the seasonal things that people really like. Like for around here, for example, pickling season is kind of a really big thing that maybe in kind of mid to late summer, people are really wanting to make pickles. And so having things like pickling cucumbers, like the little ones, little gherkins, or like green beans or beets, having those things available at that time is really smart and can help you to be really successful in that way. So just being aware of what kind of things people want at the different times of the summers or throughout the season, even early and late season things like radishes, peas, beets, carrots, things like that are not available in farmers market, not available locally through the whole season, you know? And so being able to capitalize on having those specific things at those times is really important. And so generally, again, I would say a lot of it is competition. And there's a lot of competition in farmers markets. And um it's not like malicious ever. Like I've never seen a farmers market where people are like at each other's throats of like always trying to like undercut prices and everything like that. Really, the agricultural community is really supportive and people want to see each other succeed and they mourn with each other when they have struggles and things like that. And I think that's a really unique thing about local production and local producers. And so in the end, I'd say just go to your farmer's market and see what's there, see what people are wanting. And maybe you can find a way to be successful or to insert yourself into that market. I think the kind of classic things like tomatoes, green beans, zucchini, sweet corn, things like that, is good to start with. But I think to be successful in a already established market, it's good to look for and try to find those specialized things.
Do the farms that you've worked with, do they use greenhouses to or cold frames? I mean, maybe not heated greenhouses, but to extend growing seasons to try and provide the fresh produce, much longer in the year. I ask because we here at Lyra we just we partnered with a local. He grew flowers, not vegetables, but he is selling out, and he sold us a whole bunch of hoops for greenhouses. So we're going to have the capability to put up, I think, something like 180 feet worth of greenhouse if we put it all up at
Wow.
once, and row covers and ground covers and irrigation line and all that kind of stuff. If you could just spend a minute or two talking about how greenhouses can help the small producer extend season and get more out to people.
Yeah, absolutely. Greenhouses are a really valuable just asset to have on a farm. They help in the later season for things like greens and other crops like that that maybe you want to keep producing into the winter when it gets too cold. Row cover is really important in that sense also, because you add that extra layer of insulation that keeps that soil and air temperature much warmer than the outside temperature, and it allows you to produce a lot longer. But one thing about greenhouses too, it also speeds up the growing process. So maybe earlier in the season, at the early season, you get a lot more heat and a lot more kind of like sun energy that gets concentrated into that. And so that can also give you an advantage to have produce sooner. So for our farm here in Nebraska, we use our greenhouses especially for tomatoes, and we'll have tomatoes like maybe 2 to 3 weeks earlier coming out of the greenhouse than the ones that are in the field. And some of that is they're protected from things like wind. They're protected to some extent from pests, like insects and other things that maybe damage or stunt their growth. The sun intensity is not as much. So you get less burning on the fruits and plants. And so greenhouses are really a great way to be able to produce something when otherwise you really couldn't, or to give you that added advantage of producing at a time where maybe the outside temperatures would not allow it, or the ground is still frozen and you can't get like things planted yet. And so being able to utilize greenhouses is really a great way to be able to have produce at times where you normally wouldn't, or to really just increase that production level.
Awesome. This has all been really, really good information, Amy. I really appreciate all the insights
Yeah.
you've been able to bring to us today. And to kind of bring our conversation to a close, I want you to speak a little bit about you know, what draws you to gardening? I mean, what benefits does it have? I mean, how does it help your mind, body, spirit, all those things? I mean, you can garden as a job, of course. You garden to feed your family, but what else? What other joys and benefits does it bring to you, and then by extension to others?
Yeah. I think one of the big things that really drew me to agriculture was just being outside and getting to work with my hands and see a very physical and very obvious fruits of my efforts, you know? I think agriculture is one area where it demands a lot of you for sure. It's very difficult. It's at times it's very like strenuous and stressful. But you also get to see the results of that effort a lot, a lot more obviously. Sometimes, well, when we're working, it's just a really hot day. It's really difficult. We're struggling to get things picked, it's really hard. But in the end, we go back in the shop and we see just this massive amount of produce that we've picked, or just these beautiful, just like peppers or potatoes or whatever it may be. And it's really fulfilling to get to see that. And when you go from planting a seed in a little tiny cell to transplanting that plant into the field to being able to pick the fruit from that vine, it's really exciting to see it through that whole process. And that's one thing that when I was in just my early few years of college, that I really didn't get to see, because I was only able to work on the farm from maybe May to July. I didn't get to see that early season of the planting, and I didn't get to see the very late season of finishing out production and cleaning up the fields and everything like that. And so getting to see it all the way through and knowing that you are involved at every step is really fulfilling. For me, this last summer, I was able to have a little garden plot at the house where I was staying and getting to come back from work. And sometimes I would be exhausted and just hot and tired, but I knew to some extent, I knew that my garden kind of needed me too, that when it was super hot, they needed water as well. And so, kind of having something that I was responsible for and that I could care and take care of and kind of reap the benefits of was really fulfilling as well. And it just also gave me a place where I could go and kind of do a monotonous task, just maybe put on some music and just pull weeds or just kind of water all my plants and just see them growing day by day was really exciting and really just was a great way to finish out my day and kind of just be investing in something.
It has been our great joy today to have Amy Pritchett with us this day to speak to us about Concordia Ag and also all her wonderful experiences that the Lord has given her at Concordia, before Concordia, and in her work experience, and to give that gift of that knowledge to all of you. And I hope and pray this spring put something in the ground, even if it's just a little container on you
Mhm.
on the deck at your apartment. Put something in the ground and see what happens, and receive the Lord's abundance from that. And when we hope and pray, we need more local food, and so we hope some of you actually take it on and do it even on a larger scale, and provide for your neighbors into the future. So our connection with Concordia Ag has been a wonderful blessing for me, and for the work that we're doing here. And I thank Amy for that connection, for inviting me out last year, and I thank her for coming and being part of our webinar today. So thank you very much, Amy.
Thank you for having me.
The Lord be with you, friends. Continue to watch our Facebook page and our YouTube channel and all our communication channels as we continue to promote this work that we're doing here, and pray for those who will come out here and start studying and learning out here, and that the Lord would teach them of the abundance of the earth and give them the skills to take care of themselves and their neighbors. Have a wonderful day, dear friends. God's blessings.